was Kirk.
He better be, we tabled stuff.
Till then, next.
I have no idea.
All right. Also start, right? Call the meeting to order. First item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Always weird when you like go next to it. It feels like it's, we need a different spot for that flag.
We already did it.
Roll call. Mr. Petit.
Here.
Erica. Here. Brian.
Here.
David.
Here.
Vince. Here. All right. Only one not present is Kirk. Was the meeting properly notified and are we recording?
Yes.
And yes, right?
Yes and yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Scheduled presentations by guests and staff members. I just felt like reading that. Comments by board members and superintendent, general updates or questions? Okay. Staff appreciation school and breakfast on October 20th, 2021. The letters going around for signatures. It's already done. Well, there we go. That's already done. So everybody's aware of that and they'll be delivered there and then we'll be getting the,
We don't get it from him.
Yeah.
we'll be getting the bill, I'm assuming, and I don't know if they'll just do it. If they have to just do a credit card, I'll just throw it on mine and we can figure it out or whatever. So I'm hoping it's one bill and not three bills, one for each school, I'm hoping, but
It's Chartwell. It's Chartwell's.
Yeah.
What is the time?
I believe it was at 7.
Yeah, like 7:15.
Okay,
Kind of pick the building that you want to go to.
like the breakfast.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, and then we just had to bring from there to here and the bus garage. So, so we can have people go to the other schools and then somebody just has to hop to the two.
Because it'd be made right at the schools.
Right.
In the bus garage, there's literally nobody there. There are a lot of traffic buses, so it's kind of,
So you can get to that one late.
yeah,
So they-
yeah, I hung around.
Back at, by 8,
Yeah, I hung around and talked to everybody at 8 till like 8:15 last year, so if anybody wants to do that. Is it good? Yeah. Okay, perfect. Next on the agenda, superintendent annual goals discussion. So I think everybody has a hard copy here of it. So those are the goals that were cascaded down through the district and they're kind of more cascaded up. Tim reviewed with his team members. So kind of the 4 pillars: academic achievement, student climate, adult culture, and school safety. I guess first of all, do we like those 4 for goals for Tim, or there's something else that we would like to put in for this as well?
Is he part of the budget? I mean, he was that last year. I was thinking fiscal.
He's in charge fiscally, yes.
So I think that. will be in there.
Agreed?
community engagement.
Yep, that's what we had talked about that last time. Any other categories? I think we do one more, but I hate to get more than 7. Generally, 8 gets to be a lot on goals for like general categories.
Yeah, I think fiscal and community engagement. Otherwise, these are good.
Those are the only 2 that I had. So I sat down with Tim, for a few minutes, I guess, last week and just kind of reviewed it high level and talked on the phone high level about it. And that's what I told them, like, that was my guess is where we would end up, or kind of those two categories would be the only ads, kind of based on what I had heard people talking about the last time, and then just kind of running of the school. So then with that, do we like the 4 that are on there right now as far as Tim's goals?
And maybe you don't know, but my question, so on the school safety, so the first one, goal 1, safety plan, do they both deal with COVID, or is one not COVID related and goal 2 is
I
COVID
think the
related?
first one is how do you manage the entrances, the exits,
Okay,
fire, elementary school active shooter drills,
okay,
where they run across the railroad tracks to the park building.
right,
Um,
okay. Yeah, that's good that there's not just a COVID safety plan, but there's.
I was hoping not to have that second one on there, but I don't know how we
Right.
take it off this year yet.
Not as long as they make us have a plan.
Well, that and like it's dynamic still a little bit, right? Because we're working with the WIAA, we're working with different conferences, we're working with all of those things. So it just feels like you have to have something.
Yeah.
You need to, you have to have something that's true north.
So student climate, that means that Tim would be in the building, visiting them. Whatever, is that his goal or is?
So it was the same as his goal last year, basically, is he would go to every building once a week, interact with his direct reports as well as teachers and kind of walk through the school.
I see he's like the Mickey
And then-
Mouse now.
Yeah.
You seen that? Like what
At
is?
the elementary school, it used to be Mr. Brown.
Mr.
was-
Brown was
The cat and all that stuff.
like he's like the guy of the week, like he
Or,
goes
yeah,
into the classroom of the week and
I wish he was here.
it's
I
on
wanna
social
hear
media,
Mickey
we've
Mouse's
got.
voice. We're gonna make him like read the next time in that voice here.
He looks super comfortable doing it.
Okay.
That's good.
I think that's great, yeah.
Yeah.
It's
No, I-
not
that's-
scary, it's good for the
Yeah, it's
kids,
a
like
different
especially all the way up through, like he's a human.
Yes, I
Yeah.
think so too. I think that's
Yeah,
great.
some people are, who is that guy? My kids.
No, I think that's great.
Pretty cool.
And then the one is a little bit different there, we're like having a conversation with 5 different staff members each week. That is a little bit different. And then the other one that I talked to Tim about is that Tim and I going in once every month or once every other month during the off day, what are the development days? I was gonna say off days, yeah, but the personal development days, going in and doing like a all building meeting. Because we did it after the referendum didn't pass and the staff seemed to like it and asked if we'd come back. So I just reminded them of that and that we were talking about putting that into the goals that like I would go, or if another board member, if it made more sense to have a different board member occasionally go in, just like once a month or once every other month. So we're just gonna look at the calendar to see what works for it. Because some of those BD days are full, right? So then we can't do it. So it might be 3 in a row and then 2 off or whatever. So he's gonna put that calendar together.
Is that one Friday a month?
Typically, it's, yeah,
It's generally some are more, like some are off. So if you look at the calendar, that's why it's a little bit.
like we just had one, right? Like a week ago.
So that was an ad that I had talked to him about putting in just based on feedback from them, and then it would give a chance that they like voicing their very blunt opinions to me in there, which is fine. I've heard way worse.
The more engagement, the better, right?
Yeah, for sure.
There's no surprises in maybe?
No, I mean, that's all. And honestly, most of the time, like if you get that off your chest, the next time you have a conversation, it's much more cordial and it's a much better conversation because you know where both of you are coming from. So,
Stuff doesn't fester.
so that was the only ad that I had in the adult culture one. Because we're kind of going bottom Or are we kind of like hopping around, I guess? The only one I'm not, that I literally can't weigh in on, to David's point though, is the top one, the academic achievements. You know, having the effect of, is it RT
RTI,
interventions, like I don't even know what that is.
I remember that from both,
When kids are behind their grade level achievement, then they do interventions.
yes.
I don't know what it
Okay.
stands for, but it's
RTI, yeah.
specific.
Okay.
intervention.
I wasn't sure if it was like that
Response
intervention
to-
or a different one. So that one I wasn't sure on when we talked. So is there anything else in those four then?
So he actually sends out a survey to students.
He reviewed it with us
Yeah,
a couple times now. You guys saw it once. And then I think we saw it a couple times over the last year and a half now. So I know you guys went through it one time with you guys.
Okay.
With it. Yeah. He might not have known what it was at that time yet with it,
Okay.
but yeah, he does that engagement. I think it was right away.
Okay, because I've seen that, obviously,
The
in the
staff,
staff one, but yeah.
So I mean, would you want, I mean, with that, do we want to review it twice a year or something?
What are we,
I mean, I don't know.
semesters? Each school's different, right? Some have semesters, some have.
Right, but we just break it.
I think twice a year would be, because then you can maybe see improvement within the year or something.
Mid-year review and a year end or something.
Yeah.
Probably good.
That's tough because you kind of want to know where you're starting out.
Yeah,
Then
yeah.
you don't want to wait until the end of the year to see how you did because you could go 9 months without improving. So you want to hit it in the middle. You almost have to do it 3 times.
So like right now,
You almost have to hit it right at the beginning.
Do the survey 3 times.
Right,
yeah,
right.
You get
Okay.
baseline.
Yeah, right in the way, beginning of the year.
Yeah, 'cause it would be hard-
Middle of the year, how are things going now? And then the end of the year, how do we react?
yeah, because
Well, the survey came out in the middle of the year.
it'd be hard for us to evaluate unless we.
Yeah, I mean, that one's
Beginning of the year.
squishy.
Yeah.
Still.
Beginning of the year is kind of tough too because you're just starting out, you don't know how.
How's the school year going?
Yeah.
Horrible. I'm done with them. It's not summer anymore.
Or it's going really great because you haven't experienced.
You should survey the parents then.
It's going
When the
awesome.
school goes back, like, best day ever.
Well, that could be part of the community engagement, I guess.
Okay, with that fiscal, what are we thinking for fiscal?
Well, it kind of based off the audit last time, right? And then
Balanced budget.
you have no choice.
Kind of a given. It's kind of a given.
It's always balanced, right?
Yeah.
And part of it is, ensuring that we've got that. Probably 17 to 19%.
The,
Contingency fund.
is the
So,
Yeah, the work's gone.
fund balance.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, as far as a balanced budget, there is no option other than it being balanced, but I suppose technically trying to find opportunities in there to fulfill the district needs.
manage balanced budget, and cash. I mean, part of it is I think we have to put something in there around cash flow though too, right? Because they talk about those loans, short-term loans, they refinance, right? We don't start those things. They meet with Barrett and they refinance. They look for opportunities to do that.
And that actually has not too much to do for cash flow, but
I mean, the cash flow around the fact that they manage the short-term loans,
Yeah.
right? That's all I meant by that one.
because we don't have, I mean, our cash flow is completely dependent upon when the state pays us.
And federal money.
And I don't know if it still goes through the federal money or it come through the state or get it directly, I don't know.
So manage balanced budget, ensure cash flow. I don't know, wordsmith it. And identify.
Last year's.
This is a new subject, right?
identify opportunities.
I think it was in the, was it, it
Fiscal
was in school
integrity.
last year, wasn't it? Wasn't there?
It was, yes.
Yeah.
I would say something about maintaining fiscal integrity or something.
Prioritizing.
So like audit.
Staff over stuff, right?
Do we need? Probably break that into two.
Yeah.
So there's like the tactical piece of it, then the identifying opportunities and maintaining fiscal integrity, kind of the secondary one. And the fund balance would go to the second one. Community engagement.
We had for a while, I don't remember that, Jeff.
This is the hardest one. But I think it's the most important one right now.
Committee
Yeah.
meetings.
Yeah, he used to have a community, it started with David Bradley.
Yeah, it
And
was just,
Tim did
a-
it for a while. It was
it was
just,
just community engagement is all it was.
just had people that were like his advisory, they weren't,
Oh, I was on it.
he just talked about stuff. that was
Yeah, we
going
talked
on.
about a bunch of stuff and I was on there. I was on that for a couple of
Here's,
years.
that's something that he tries to do, I think every other month during the school year.
It used to be every month.
Right, I know it used to be, I don't know.
Did you say that was open to public?
Well,
No.
technically it has to be, but it was by invitation.
It was by invitation.
And it was wide section of the community, different folks. And it really was just Tim getting up there and saying, gee whiz, here's what we're doing right now. And what do you think? Give input.
Yeah, different demographics, like the elderly.
There was really no
Yeah.
goal
Well,
other
there
than
was-
interaction and information back and forth. It wasn't
7 or 8
really
of
to get
us.
their input to do this thing. It's just
Did they have topics?
putting the superintendent in front of
scheduled,
them,
or
saying,
it was
here's
just-
what's going on.
So
Just
was it
whatever he
good
tells them,
question?
talking about, yeah, just
What
general
he felt
information.
like.
Or
Or the-
the members could send him a note and then he would decide if he put it on or not, but I mean, you could put it.
But I would.
Quarterly
directly do
roundtable
that
or
if he-
something like that.
Was
I
that
just think he needs to
successful?
have some community engagement activities. I don't know what they are.
And at the end, that was getting fairly negative, assuming that's why it probably isn't. It was getting
Kinda like if you did it-
a little contentious.
Like if you did a town hall, we'd probably just get everybody bad hearts.
That's what I was.
I mean, do we want to do like community engagement though, to like active communication to the community on a regular basis? Because you had talked about the letter,
Like a
or the
newsletter.
newspaper that looks like a paper. We talked about like a communication specialist.
Right there, face.
Yeah, that would do all of that.
I would think it should be active communication and listening from the community. So that people can give input.
So active two-way communication.
I'd be interested to know kind of his take on how or why things turn sour with that meeting before. That's what I mean, monthly to me might be.
Everybody
overkill.
like came like, I was in there and like everybody had like this like how it impacted them specifically personally and they like held their ground and I'm like,
How many years ago was that? Or how many years have we not done it?
so I was on it like 4 years ago. I mean, cause I mean, it was fun, like everybody was different groups, but the one person on it was really worried about kids with special needs. And if you talked about any other students, like she didn't want to talk about it. Had nothing to do with it. So it was like, it was
There can be too much
awkward.
also, that's why I say, I mean, almost every other month. That gives them 5 meetings in a school year,
I wouldn't
if you
tell
run
him
every
how
other
to
month.
do it, it's just have him come and, so at the end of the year, he reports on what he did or gives us quarterly reports on what he's
So
doing.
restart engagement, community engagement group or whatever
I
that is.
just, I feel like monthly is kind of getting oversaturated. Then they start to feel like they can come to them with everything. It's like, no, this is just kind of a couple month update on, hey, here's what's going on. Anybody have any comments or concerns or questions or accolades even?
That's impossible, right?
Okay. All right. Anybody have anything else? I think I could probably craft this up with Tim.
I mean, like, you know, to Jeff's point too, if Tim's got other ways that he thinks he can engage with the community that are, but you might be more functional than having those meetings, you know, absolutely, you know, I don't wanna tell them, this is what you're gonna do, but
Right.
Happy hour.
Or to just be president. I mean, it's hard to be president in the community, but I mean, he's a busy guy, so I don't expect him to go to all events, but some people don't know who Tim is, honestly. So,
I know there's a balance there, you know, at some point of, do you give them a home life in the evening?
yeah, I mean, like I said, I don't want him to be gone every night, but
Yeah.
to end up at one burger night or something, I don't know.
Burger night was burger night.
Like, all these clubs have
Oh, the fundraisers.
like the fundraiser,
Gotcha.
you know, whatever, just,
Gotcha. I
I
wasn't
don't
sure
know,
what you
you-
meant.
I mean, that's kind of what we're supposed to do is be in the community and do that, but
He shows up at some of the local community board meetings dressed as Mickey Mouse.
I'm sure. He has to be in parades in the summer.
You can take my spot.
Okay. Great.
I'm sure the boys really enjoy that too.
They do. Matt and I are looking forward to perhaps when they just do it. It's the truck cleaning. That takes an enormous amount of time.
We should do,
Two big pillars on our community engagement and finances right now.
that would be
We're adding-
6 then, yeah. We should do the praise for the dance studio and we play the same song for, and I would sit there and listen to it in River Falls for 2 hours,
Yes.
every
It's a
3
small
minutes.
world. It just goes on and on.
No, that was pre that, that's pre that, thankfully. So, okay, I'll work with Tim, we'll get this crafted up and then bring it back, I think, I think we have to do the final approval of the board, right? So, we'll have it for the next meeting for approval, and that can be an open, I believe. Okay. All right, next on the agenda, consideration of consent agenda. We don't have anything on D, so nothing was submitted, so
So we move to accept as presented. Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Approved. Administrative reports? Trying to put you on the spot. Next is discussion of future needs and priorities. So I have this with Tim that we have to talk about probably not skit night. It's probably a good idea not to do that.
But it's not in that building, so.
Well, in general though, right? I mean, if you're trying to get the community involved and excited and all of that, it might not be great to do that. Might be bad timing.
It just came up when I was at the football game. I'm like, yeah,
You're not-
good point.
I don't have any kids old enough for
Point.
that, so I don't know any of those dates yet, so. Okay, I'll follow up on that one. Anybody have anything else on it? I know we're well into it. Now we're gonna start working on the future. The thing that I've talked to a couple people that are at the task force, they kind of grabbed me in parking lots and whatnot and just talked to them about the fact of bringing ideas forward. Like, we don't have any preconceived notion of what this should be or could be. Like, we need you to bring ideas. If you want to be creative, by all means, be creative, bring up ideas, debate them. We're looking for input and feedback and what the community really would like. This isn't you just to be an echo chamber for us and just nod your heads and then go vote no. After the fact. So that's kind of the message that I've told them.
Yeah, it seems like people are ready to start making suggestions. They're like, well, when's our input gonna come into play? I'm like, well, it's coming, so.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just had to get the backstory to everything and show you
Just
that.
get some data.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the only thing that I've been hearing. Everybody's got an opinion on what they're gonna vote for and not vote for. Like, a good thing you don't have to vote on anything tomorrow, so we're okay. So, anything else on that? Guess we'll have time if we don't do Wednesday. Okay, moving on then. Core agenda items, consideration of changing board learning and special meeting dates to Wednesday for the remainder of the school year. So exhibit 10A, you saw that on the calendar. The only thing I'm just gonna give everybody information on, I just kind of pulled financials. So when we do these, the board learning, it costs about 10 grand-ish, not quite $10,000 a year for the district from a cost perspective. By the time we all get paid for all the meetings, if somebody pull everything together, do the overtime here, everything like that, that's kind of the cost. So with that, I'm not saying not to do it, but is that just think about it. If that's what we had, is that the way you would do it? With it, because I know I'm tapped right now with the meetings and it's 4 a month right now, and it's going to be through probably the end of the year.
I do think that our board retreat, the one with the admin and then by ourselves at pickup, was more productive than any of these 2-hour things. So I don't know if maybe better to have those 4-hour evening planned than 1 month.
And that's why I was bringing up the
Just
number.
do a quarterly,
I like that
more,
idea.
longer thing, but just do it as, I'd be open to that. I do think, whether we spend $10,000 on these meetings, I'm okay spending $10,000 on board learning and raising the bar for all of us.
Mhm.
I think that's money well spent. But I think what's most effective, I think that board retreat was way more effective than any of these.
That's
Monday
honestly
night things.
why I brought it up, just so everybody kind of had a number where you could afford to do some of those things with that money if we wanted to spend it differently. That's why I'm bringing it up.
That's kind of where I am with it, is the number, the amount does not bother me. If those meetings, as I had said before, if we can get back to educating ourselves on how to be a better board and how to be better members. These meetings wouldn't necessarily be an exact, mini retreat. But the atmosphere would be a lot closer to that if we focused more on what do we find out about ourselves and about the other board members, and how do we interact with each other, and how do we make better decisions. It's a different atmosphere than, yes, pay that bill, okay, they're resigning, okay, we hired them. That's different. That's just another board meeting instead of a board learning meeting. I'd be fine keeping them monthly if they turned into something more like the retreats, or maybe every other month, or maybe it's once a quarter, but the amount, the number does not bother me as long as, what's the ROI? Really, what is it?
I mean, it depends on what you do with any of them.
And I could see some of the activities that we did at the retreat could be we could do 1 or 2 of those activities on a Wednesday night, or would we rather do it 3 or 4 hours one evening once a quarter?
I think you're just getting into, I think the bigger time frame might be better, because sometimes it takes a while to get into an activity. Focus, or, sometimes we're rushing in and people are late. So I think once you start it and you're there and you build that community, and if it's just 2 hours, it might, 3, 4. Who is facilitating these things, or do we not need a facilitator?
If it was monthly, it would be us.
Yeah, we just did them as our.
Okay.
If it was quarterly, I'm just throwing that out because if that's what we're already gonna spend, you could probably pay a facilitator quarterly. But that's the reason I brought it up, is that was kind of where my head went when I pulled that number. I was like, maybe we could do something like that and actually have it facilitated and have somebody that does a prep session who's really prepared to come in and really.
Is that something that's here? Or is it open still? And is that something that's recorded?
No, it wouldn't be recorded. Board learning actually never were recorded before, I know we're recording now.
It's because
I
we
guess-
conducted regular business.
Do
Right.
regular business.
So that's what I'm saying, so if we change that, then it would be if we have back,
We're not conducting standard business.
Right,
It
right.
would be like the retreat that we had.
Yeah.
That's not recorded and then put on the website,
and if we have like the faculty and staff here, it'd still be the same atmosphere if we're recording it, broadcasting it. That's what I was.
Yeah, the question would be whether this location is conducive. When I do retreats with executive teams, I always take them off site because it's there at the office, they're checking their email and people, so I take them off site. So, but this isn't really our site, so I don't know. We can figure it out, it could be in a classroom or, in that room or something. I don't know that it'd sit here like this.
Sure. Just wondering.
I'm actually having lunch with Lee and Tim tomorrow. So I'll ask those guys, Lee in particular, like if you were going to structure a board, over the course of a year, would it be better in your mind to have an hour and a half every other month or doing something more concentrated? Whether or not he's the one that's hired. I'm leaning towards quarterly doing an evening, I'll say off-site where we can get into stuff. That's what I'm leaning.
And the goals would be educational or team building or both, or what were your?
Yes. Yes. And I think in some cases, it could be strategic where, Lee is certainly capable of doing helping a board do a strategic thinking. But, with all new board members, the purpose was team building and getting to know each other and getting comfortable. But at some point, we only kumbaya long enough and then, we got to start moving the ball. So so that could be a strategic thing where we do a deep dive on some pillar and, how can the board be impactful on community engagement and what might we do and what was our plan? So it could be either.
And it's typical to have the board retreat in the summer, like that's already one that would be.
We didn't do it the year prior.
It would just fall on a natural calendar now almost. If we did it quarterly, we'd have.
Remembering snow. Yeah, I do too. I think it should be done early enough that the admin, when they're doing their summer planning, that they have the benefit of the board's input in whatever they do. This one is, we're doing it after the fact, but they already got their plan.
They do there in August, yeah. So we'd almost have to do like a June or July.
I'd say spring, early summer, when you want to.
May, yeah.
So the question is, do we cancel this board learning until we decide to do something? Or I'm okay with that too, but I don't want to not.
I think we've
do
got to give
something.
them maybe a month or two to the office to figure out how we feather that into getting everything back to one meeting.
They already put that together of how to do it. Like I have to
Okay,
come in,
feather
you have
it.
to come in and you have to come in, like the three of us have to come in to sign. Or Kirk has to come.
And there'll be a continuing resolution that authorizes the officers to come in.
Yeah, we have to
The
do
main
the
thing I didn't want to
authorization
do is,
for you to
I
approve
didn't want to
those.
just slam the door in one meeting and just have the office like, well, figure it out, we're done.
Yeah.
But, if it's
I
already.
mean, we
been-
already do it because I get called on them. When we only have one meeting a month, they get called to come in and sign. We haven't done it yet, but Pam would call me like this summer. I had to come in and sign. Or did I do it in September? Yeah. I remember. Done it twice. That's all I remember.
So I think if we do that and we do it soon, then I think on our next agenda, we need to have something figured out as far as a schedule or discussion around a schedule or a plan on how we move forward with quarterly retreats or whatever it is. What I wouldn't want to do is just say, okay, fine, we're done, no more board learning, and then it just sort of fizzles, and we don't make a plan.
No, it has to be on the next, it has to be
Yeah, we'd have to plan the
on the agenda
four
on the
meetings out
25th
basically.
to plan the 4 meetings. Is this something that a person can, I don't know all the legal ramifications of all discussions other than like walking quorum, I've read that a bunch. Can we ever have like subcommittees that like come back with a proposal? Like 2 people get together and come back with a proposal?
I mean, that's what our wage and benefit committee does.
Right. So would anybody want to take a crack at that?
I would glad to, I love training and facilitation, so
Are we looking for
I'm not
topics for the
looking
4
to
meetings?
be the facilitator.
Looking kind of around the first, like when,
And then what?
put the bones on it and then the what. I think.
I'm happy to talk to Tim and make a suggestion to you, and then you can bring it to the board as you see fit. It's not really a committee, it's just, I'll talk to Tim and come up with a proposal with dates or kind of.
I certainly don't have any problem at all with Tim actually giving some suggestions of what he thinks would be good topics. Even though we're technically his boss, what he's doing is he's giving us feedback on how he sees us operate as a unit.
Yeah, but I think it's kind of a little bit like this.
Mm-hmm.
It's not fair for him to tell us what we need to learn. So I appreciate his input, but I think we should. And we can look at the board, the work of the school board, notebook, you know, that.
The key work, I think.
Key work is the
something that
board.
I think as a board, we need to go through that again. It's been a long time and 4 people on the board have never done it.
I've read it could be strategic.
Personally read it twice.
To do with us as a group.
But no, that's fine. I'm just saying like because like Howard told me and I was like, oh, I went to the first meeting. I'm like, this is real. Like I better read this thing. Yeah. And then I don't know, did you guys get like a almost a cheat sheet with it? So I got stuff from the WASB that kind of gave me a cheat sheet of like key points of emphasis that I should.
Yeah.
And I read all of those sections first and then redid that just because I assumed that they took the time to say it was important, it was probably important.
I think I got a phone call too. From someone on that WSB.
Oh, yeah, I was on
think
like
there
a
Yeah.
meeting with more people.
But there definitely is other board education things on the Girl Scout board. We took training from some national thing and we had a laminated sheet that talked about each of the board responsibilities and we'd make sure that we were doing that in terms of stewardship or whatever. I mean, there's other things beside that tool that we could just keep raising the bar and get exposure to. I'm happy to do it. I'm welcome anybody else that wants to give input in what those topics should be.
And sometimes if you look, I'm just thinking of the conference that is like the 2 or 3 day, maybe you look at
You're
those, you know, like what are they talking about? What are the hot topics? And perhaps,
Would that be part of the organizational meeting each year then? Pick 4 topics type thing?
No, that's really just the election of officers.
It's just the election of officers. It's kind of, I mean, it's hard to put anything on the agenda depending on how it,
You don't know who's gonna be the president.
right?
Yeah.
Or like this time, like we didn't have one, right? So people try to get stuff on the agenda, the public did, and it's like,
Yeah, there should be some sort of
President, so
backup
it's-
plan for that whole situation.
we'll just bring it up before the last one's gone. Right, because it,
I don't think that's
I see
how they-
that Tim joined us. Is he on the line?
So moving unanimous, Tim has all the responsibility.
Tim, we're talking about.
oh,
Well, I'm out.
someone text him quick.
so is that, I mean, so we would have to make a motion. It would have to be separate, right? Or would it be a motion to convert
The board learning to a quarterly.
to a quarterly?
or learning, whatever you want to call it, instead of monthly.
And one would include the retreat.
I think we could just leave it generic, and then if we do want to do a retreat, it's a retreat.
But I think part of that, and we don't have to do it in the motion to set the meeting, but is, as a board, we're gonna plan out what those 3 or 4 meetings are gonna be, the topics.
I just
So that we come and somebody's prepared, whether it's one of us or an outside facilitator or.
Are we gonna consider this one our fourth quarter?
Or no, I think we should do one. We should do one, in November or something.
We didn't do any learning.
Okay, I just, if we do it, I just want to know when we're starting, so.
Preparing.
I think we're gonna talk about a proposal next meeting, right, about when it would be December 25th.
Yes,
Nobody has a meeting that day.
that is very true.
I work 7 days.
I got a
week.
meeting
work
at
Saturday
church.
and Sunday, so it's all just days that end with Y for me at work. So, okay, so
We'll come back with the
We'll need
proposal at
a-
the next.
We need a motion for that?
we need a motion to move it, right?
Oh, well,
Because you're gonna not want it on the, we're gonna wanna remove it from the calendar.
You wanna come back at the next regular board meeting with a recommendation?
I think we should
Because
get
the
it on the
motion
calendars.
At the next board meeting, then.
yeah, let's just do it all at the next board meeting.
Because then that'll capture the meeting for
Does that
November.
work? Is that enough time to pull it off on the calendar for the next one is what I was asking.
What do we need, 7 days? Not to put you on the spot, but I'm gonna put you on the spot.
It's November.
Is it like 7 days?
So the regular meeting.
5 days or
is
7
October-
days for.
So it's October 25th and it's November 3rd,
No, it's not enough time.
right? So we would need to, I think we have to cancel this during this one and we can reset it at the next one, I believe.
We're gonna
That was
postpone the next board learning to a date to be determined.
Second.
So so that the staff doesn't have to plan for that November 3rd meeting. It's gonna be something other, so we won't have a November 3rd board learning.
So that's the motion.
Motion. Second.
Did you get that motion?
Yes.
Okay. I'm pretty sure
Just
you
go
got
write something down. So all we're doing
Just postpone
is
it.
we're postponing that board learning to a date to be determined. But ultimately moving to a quarterly board learning.
So that postpones that one, which we
Mhm.
covered then, and then the 25th,
We
we
can
go
reset.
figure out what we're gonna do for a schedule from there on out, which covers the rest of it. With plenty of time.
I was just looking at the dates. I'm like, I don't think there was enough time after that one.
Oh, that's good.
So, okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Other reminder to submit thank you and recognition nominees. Since Tim isn't on, I've got a question on that one. I'm going to put in for Jen and then Tim for working with Baird Financial to identify those
I mean, they said
opportunities.
$2 million this year.
I mean, that's something
And
that
I
we
can
can
do
put
it
in,
to
right?
Brian too.
Yeah, separate, but I mean, like to those three, that was one that I was gonna put in. I just didn't know if that's something that we don't do, but
I think that's very appropriate.
and everybody knows how to do that, right? And it doesn't have to just be school related. It can be like we've had somebody is an Eagle Scout, we've had somebody did something in the community. So just kind of recognition for school and community items. October 12th, the fall regional meeting at 7. And then the state convention 19th through the 21st on that one. We have until November to notify, right? That we,
Sooner the better.
Yeah.
Did someone sign me up to go to
Yes.
the, okay,
Yep, yes.
because I plan to go.
You should sign me up to
For the October, the
Uh,
12th or
no,
the June?
the January.
does it matter what days? Do you sign up for one, you sign up for all, or just sign up?
I can just sign up for all of them.
Okay, I'll send it to you because I've got something from work I'm trying to move that I'm not having a lot of luck with for one of the days, but I can attend 2 days.
Okay.
I think that's me too.
Okay. Other important upcoming dates? Everybody can can read that, other than call Tim, that one. And then, with that,
We'll adjourn.
all those in favor?
Hi.
Aye. Opposed? Was that Kirk?
You don't ask for that.
By the time we said aye, the meeting's over, you couldn't vote no at that point.
You can still go in the minutes.